So, what does everybody want to talk about? It is episode 307 of everyone's favorite wrestling podcast, The F and Marks, and I am the brainless one, and I really could not wait to get on to tonight's show because a lot has happened in professional wrestling this week. Obviously, we had WrestleMania this past weekend. We're definitely going to get into that. I cannot wait to get into that. We're going to talk about... There's a new owner of WWE. What does this mean for WWE going forward? We're definitely going to be talking about that. We're going to talk about some stuff that happened in AEW this week. Some interesting things that have occurred. There was somebody that was apparently WWE bound that looks like they're not WWE bound, clearly. We're going to discuss that. We'll talk about Raw. We'll talk about, honestly, the big thing, there was really two things. WrestleMania and the new sale of WWE, the new owners of WWE. And I'll tell you, I'm one of those, call me a conspiracist or whatever you want to say, but it kind of went hand in hand. Did it feel like the mood and just the feeling on night two after they announced the sale on Sunday morning that they made official on Monday? I mean, because honestly, it was just, I don't know what it was. It's just the timing. I really didn't like the timing. And I actually have my opinions about who they got sold to and all that stuff. I have a lot of opinions about WrestleMania as a whole. And you know what? I say we can... I'll start talking about WrestleMania as, until Jay gets here and everything, and then he can, put his 2 cents in. Honestly, WrestleMania was just underwhelming to me. There was quite a bit of really good stuff, but as a whole, WrestleMania just was underwhelming to the brainless one. And I was feeling, yeah?
Yeah.
What's up, Cousin Jay?
Hey, not much. I like the lighting. Are you doing a pitch black match?
I'm in the boiler room next to Mankind somewhere.
Oh, okay.
I'm afraid that the big red machine's gonna come out and sneak up behind me and choke slam me into the computer desk or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jay,
Love the shirt. Love the hat.
I had to. Well, I definitely had to wear the hat because they won the championship on Monday. Which honestly, I mean, there was a lot of good this week, and this might actually take the cake for me. But
Two Bristol
I feel
on the University of Connecticut team, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So we got that. There is so much stuff to get into this week. I am glad that I have recovered from what I was dealing with, because I felt like absolute hell last Thursday, last Friday, and even into last Saturday. I am glad I got full energy, and I am going to ride Vince McMahon's mustache through this whole episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At one point, Mike Rainey did say that night one was a better night than night two. I can't argue that. I only had really 2 gripes with night one.
Yeah.
Do you want to? Should we just get into WrestleMania, or do you want to talk about the Vince stuff with the sale?
Let us get into WrestleMania, because I mean that chronologically is what happened first.
Yep. And I'll be honest with you, Jay. I was kind of on the fence on how I felt about Austin Theory and John Cena wrestling at WrestleMania this year. John Cena, everybody's been making the joke about the whole bald spot in the back of his head and everything. And, everybody was, and on the flip side with The Rock, everybody was making a big deal about the fact that The Rock said he wasn't in ring shape to compete at WrestleMania this year, which is why he wasn't there. So
right.
Let's fast forward to night one, the first match. We have John Cena versus Austin Theory. I love the presentation that they did with Austin Theory. It was very well done because at the end of the day, nobody does the theatrics and all the pomp and circumstance like WWE does.
Right.
They just kill the presentation. And they did it with him. I like the way they're booking him. However, this was the worst match of the show.
No doubt about it.
I cannot fathom, after digesting that entire match, how to kind of come up with an explanation. Like, I don't, like, they said that this was the way that he should have done. No. If John Cena was going to look as shitty as he was because he wasn't going to be able to take any bumps, John Cena is not a technical mastermind in the ring. We made fun of him for the 5 moves of doom for well over a decade.
Right.
So I think they kind of blew it. I understand they did the whole special entrance with him and the Make-A-Wish kids. And again, I will forever applaud that man because I have the utmost respect because, as Cornette even says, after you do it a certain amount of times, doing something like that 600 times, you're not asked to do it. You're taking it upon yourself to go and do these things.
Yeah.
But Theory should have just beat the shit out of him during his entrance, threw him into the ring, hit him with his finisher, A-Town Down or whatever the hell it's called, and pinned him. That's how they should have did it.
I mean, quite honestly, it was, I think, the worst match of the weekend. And I know most of the crowd was just happy to see John Cena.
Yep.
But and again, it could be due to restrictions and limitations brought on him by his film projects or his TV projects where, like, hey, we can't have you do this, we can't have you do this. And he might have had to say, like, okay, I'll do the match, but, like, it's going to be really limited as far as what I can do and what I can't do. Because, I mean, like, to be honest, like, even when he did the 5-knuckle shuffle, like, it looked off. There was something not right about it. Yep. And it felt like this match, like, it was a rocket on a launch pad that never really took off.
Right.
I think it did what it needed to for Austin Theory and John Cena, so it's not going to hurt him. So, and not every match, like if every match is a 5-star match, then, like, you've got to have some matches that aren't, filet mignon. And this one was, it got the crowd into it because it was John Cena off the top, and that was about it. This match was not very good. But I mean, I was hyped just because it was the beginning of WrestleMania. So,
honestly, that match kind of just took it out of me after that, and I was like, "Geez, I'm like, I hope this is not them setting the tone." Because originally, the idea was going to be Logan Paul and Seth Rollins. We'll get into that in a minute. Was supposed to be the curtain jerker, and then instead they gave the Brock Lesnar match to John Cena and Austin Theory.
Yeah.
And then it fell flat, and I was just like, oh. My last point on this entire match, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this. I have watched all 39 WrestleManias at least once in my life. I have watched every single match from every single WrestleMania. I have seen multiple matches hundreds of times. That match between Cena and Theory was the worst WrestleMania match I've ever seen in my entire life.
I think there are worse ones out there. I mean, if you go to, like, WrestleMania 27, there are a lot of clunkers on that. And I mean, in general, WrestleMania 27 was a clunker.
Well, I'm not talking about, like, Mayweather versus The Big Show or The Big Show versus Aki Bono. I'm not going to mention stuff like that because I'm not going to count the outside people
wrestlers, people who do this for a living.
I just think with everything involved, the fact that there was a 16-time champion, you have one of your best in-ring performers. Say what you will about Austin Theory. He has the personality of a cardboard box and the intelligence of a cardboard box. But that dude could have a 4-star match against that cardboard box. And it got the lowest rating. If you don't count the 2 surprise matches, it got the lowest rating from Dave Meltzer. 2.25 stars.
Right.
So I just think with everything involved, with all the hype and everything, it really just, you take everything into account, it was the most, maybe it wasn't the worst WrestleMania match, but it was the most disappointing.
Tim is putting out there a match that I think you might agree with is worse. Giant Gonzalez versus The Undertaker, playa.
Okay, so John Cena and Austin Theory was the second worst WrestleMania match I've ever seen in my entire life. Okay, thank you. And that
Khali had some WrestleMania matches. I'm sure his were worse.
He was in like battle royals. Something. I don't think. Oh no! Did he
beat championship during WrestleMania?
He beat Kane at WrestleMania one year.
Kane!
And that was, I think, when Kane had the stupid chain at one point. And it's just because I want to say when I was going through the list of the 100 worst wrestling matches of all time, that match popped up on many lists that I was looking for. So I believe it. And if it's the great, and like I said, if the great Khali ever fought El Gigante, nobody would win. But I will say this, the second match, the tag team turmoil match or the tag team showcase was awesome.
That was a lot of fun. Ricochet doing what he did, with the, what was it, the shooting star press off of Braun Strowman outside the ring.
Yep.
There was awful lot of fun moments in that match. And it took the failure to launch in the first match and really did get WrestleMania moving in a positive direction.
I loved when Chad Gable German suplex Braun Strowman because that place went nuts. And then when Strowman, near the end of the match, when Strowman was doing his I'm going to do my run around and plow through everybody. When Dawkins took him down, I jumped up off the couch.
And everybody in the damn stadium did, and I bet everybody else did, because, like, you've never seen that dude not just roll over everybody. Like, and then they bring up Dawkins in his football background, which it's like, all right, hey, you have added a layer to him, and you gave him a moment in that match that nobody has seen.
Yeah. And the closest we've gotten to that was a few years back. I think it was the year Corbin, when bum-ass Corbin won the Andre the Giant, and I remember that was the one where he clotheslined Strowman over the top rope, and people were like, holy shit.
Right.
That was the only cool match that Baron Corbin's ever had in his career.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the tag team match was a lot of fun, and I'm glad that they did that.
Well, in the Street Profits winning was good. I just don't like that they had them, like, do that, and then they ended up, fast forward to Monday, they put them in the match with the tag champs, and you have them lose, and it's a non-title match. It's like going, they won that tag team turmoil thing, and they touted during the match, hey, this could put you up on the list of teams that could have a shot at the title, whoever happens to be champion.
Right.
And you immediately have them lose. It's like, come on. Like, I'll just say the tail of the weekend to the tail of Monday, you had on night one a tag team match main eventing, which tells you who's not in charge on Saturday. Then come Monday, you put you put the team that won the tag team turmoil, and hey, maybe they get a shot at the title for this. They don't get a shot at the title, and then they lose. Tells you who was in charge on Monday.
Yep. Very tough. And honestly, and you mentioned the tag team match. The match that was awesome. the tag team wrestling matches on night one were both awesome.
The one thing, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, the tag team matches. I'm not gonna say the one on night two, which was not awesome, but honestly, that was a good indictment because of the fact that Triple H wants to push these tag teams, and he put the right four teams. I know we joke about Ricochet and Braun Strowman being a makeshift tag team, but hey, they worked in that match. Tell me who didn't pop it.
Like, yeah. Once they got put together and you know, at the beginning, it almost felt like forced punishment on Strowman for saying what he said. But they clearly Strowman has built an awful lot of respect up for Ricochet and what he actually can do in the ring. And they've tried to turn this into a tag team that, like, even though they don't have a name, like, they are a legit team that, you know, does double team stuff, does stuff to work together.
Ricochet.
Right. Right. But, you know, this was a really solid fatal four-way. I love the fact that the Street Profits ended up coming out on top. I don't like what happened on Monday.
Agreed.
And as far as the tag team main event, I liked that match. I didn't love it. I thought they got a little too super kick crazy. And they did a couple of and this is something I have been kind of complaining about for a little while. I don't like that, like, it happened, I'd say, a handful of times where Sami Zayn was, like, dead. You know, he has noodle legs, he's not moving around, and then all of a sudden, he does a thing where he's as if nothing has happened to him. And things like that kind of take me out of the match. It's like going, have you been beat the crap out of? Because I saw you got kicked in the head about 50 times, and you should be all noodly legged and, like, at like death's door, but then you go in like person's running and you run full speed at them. I'm like, are you noodle legged or are you not? Things like that kind of take me out of the dang match. Even so, they had a lot of great false finishes, and they had the right team come out on top.
They did enough. They told a story. I love Sami Zayn in that match. Kevin Owens can kiss my ass. I love that match. Sami Zayn absolutely killed it. And all I'm going to say about this, if they ever do decide to do a forbidden door between WWE and AEW, if they put the Usos in a match with the Young Bucks, that's all it's going to be is super kicks. Oh, it's a super kick by Jay. Oh, it's a super kick by Matt. Oh, it's a super kick by Nick. Oh, it's a super kick by Jimmy. And it's just going to be a super kick fest.
Well, and the thing is it wasn't just the Usos in that match. Yeah. Like, Kevin Owens doing it. At least, like, with Sammy, it was like haluva kicks, which are different than a super kick.
I forget what the hell they said. It was like 40-something super kicks were hitting the match. Somebody was like, I actually counted. And it was like 46 super kicks in the match.
Yeah.
Which was funny because that pales in comparison to the amount of chops that we saw on Sunday.
But the difference is the super kick for many years was a finisher.
Shawn Michaels.
Some people is a finisher. You had gentleman Chris Adams who started it in World Class Championship Wrestling. You had Shawn Michaels who used it as a finisher. And I love me Dolph Ziggler, but he was part of the crop of people that it started being a false finish, not a finisher, where you'd get the long 2 count.
Right.
And it just kind of got ruined from there. But the chop has never been an ending move, and we saw 5 billion of them on Sunday, and I had zero problem with seeing 5 billion of them because I don't expect a chop to be an ending move.
I can't wait until we get to night 2. I really can't, because I'm going to say something just as outlandish and outrageous as my Cena theory comment from earlier.
But all that being said, I really did like the story and the presentation of the tag team match as the main event in night one. It was the right call to have that match be the main event because the storyline for the women's title match, as I stated long ago, once the match was made, that the storyline was stupid. But I said, and I quote, the match is going to start slow between Charlotte and Rhea, but they're so damn good that by the end of the match, that crowd is going to be in the palm of their hands.
Yep.
And your boy Dave Meltzer handed out 2 5-star scores during the weekend, but did not give the women's title match 5 stars. All that being said, for me, and this is considering that I absolutely loved the IC title match, it was my match of the weekend. Rhea and Charlotte killed it. It was my favorite match of the weekend. And it was a slow start at the beginning, and then they ratcheted up, and it was one of the best things I've ever seen on WrestleMania. I would almost put it on par with The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25.
Wow. That match was awesome. That was the best Charlotte Flair match I've ever seen. And Charlotte's had some great matches. I will never, ever take it from her ability to have a match. Because she's good. And that was definitely Rhea Ripley's best match. And they made up for their match from, the Thunderdome or the pre-Thunderdome Mania 30.
There was nothing wrong with that match. As far as a pure wrestling match, that was one of the best matches at WrestleMania 36.
True. But I just think that they got what they deserved on Saturday. Even though they didn't get the main event, they got what they deserved with the quality of the match, the fans reacting, that made up for WrestleMania 36 when they had the one fan, overhead. But You're right, that match was awesome. And again, it shows the ability of Charlotte in the ring, but it's also, this was Rhea Ripley's I am her moment. This is, I'm coming out. I am now, it used to be just Charlotte, Becky, Bayley, and, the woman that no longer works there anymore. And then kind of Alexa Bliss had a pretty solid run until concussions became an issue. And again, I think she's still a big star and she can get back into that spot. Asuka, other than her booking at WrestleMania, has been a monster.
Right.
But, Bianca had her moment a couple years ago. She's established herself. She's put herself in that conversation. And now I think Rhea Ripley is in that conversation where you don't just have the 4 horsemen that you can rely on. Now you have Rhea Ripley, who's a star, who can talk, who, in my opinion, is the leader of the Spooky Pals. Wait a minute. That's what this is, Jay. I am supporting the Spooky Pals this episode of the podcast. Spooky Pals.
Yeah.
But it was great because Rhea needed that moment. She needed to go in there, and she had a great match with the best wrestler in the women's division. She went over, is now the SmackDown champion. So now we're going to get more Rhea Ripley on tonight.
And with Rhea, she got such a babyface reaction and a babyface pop because going into the match, it's like when we got 2 heels here, and part of the thing that's gotten Dominic over is the fact that he and Rhea are together, and it almost feels like Rhea needs to
break from Dominic
equation, and she needs to almost feels like she needs to go full on babyface, and the Spooky Pals need to keep on being spooky.
No, because I'm gonna tell you this much: she's part of the package that makes Dominic what Dominic is.
Absolutely is.
And I'm gonna tell you this much too, since we were on the conversation of presentation earlier, and we did mention Dominic. Let's talk about his match with his dad.
That was the best I've seen Dominic in the ring. Even his 619 was not like the garbage that we saw a year ago. And, this was really his moment because he's in there with his dad, where he no longer has to wrestle like his dad or be like his dad, but you're in there with the person you're going to be most comfortable with. You've been with him your whole life. So Dominic was really solid in the ring. He didn't look like he was completely over his head. 99% of his entrance and the stuff leading into it was pitch perfect. The fact that they brought him in with the handcuffs on and what have you was great. The one thing, and it was a big issue. I know they're going way over the top with this storyline and with the fact that he went behind bars. There are certain things you just do not touch.
Yep.
And as much as like the over the top idea of like, hey, Dominic went through the worst of the worst in prison and he came out, you do not, under any circumstances, put stuff from the Holocaust. Like, you want to talk about tasteless, classless, like, millions of people died. Specifically at Auschwitz, they estimate, I think it was 1.3 or 1.5 million people died.
Yep.
Do not use that prison for anything. If you want to use San Quentin, if you want to use Alcatraz,
Guantanamo Bay.
Use those. Do not ever use anything from the Holocaust. Any of it.
Again.
And the fact that, like, they put that in there, damn. Like, it was a great video, and when you find out, like, somebody put that in, like, and I'm sure they were like, it's a joke, like going, hey, we're going way over the top. It's like, no, this is, as much as I like think that there are people that are way too sensitive out there today. This is one of those things that like is not overly sensitive. It's like, don't do it.
And this is where they screwed up, because they were in Hollywood. They wanted to make a big deal about Dominic getting out of prison. Why didn't they just shoot something with, like, Prison Shawshank? That's a movie. That's a well-known movie. Name me a human being on planet Earth who has never seen the Shawshank Redemption. There's probably maybe 7 movies I've seen more than the Shawshank Redemption. And yet every single time it's on TV, my ass is on that couch and I'm watching it. Absolutely. It doesn't matter where it's at. I'll watch it. It's that good. But I agree. Everything else was awesome. Dominic had a great match. They had a great story. That was the one match that overexceeded my expectations by a bunch. I loved that. Everything about it, the presentation minus, Auschwitz, everything else about it was great. I loved it. And Dominic is now completely he's out of purgatory with the brainless one. He's fine. I have no problem with him. His character work as of late has been fantastic. He's getting reaction from the crowd.
Yeah.
And that match with his dad, granted, like you said, if there's anybody in the world he knows better than anybody, it's his father. He better have a damn good match with his dad. But that doesn't mean that it can't translate for him having good matches against other people.
Yeah.
Eventually, at some point, it just clicks. And I'm hoping that's what it is with Dominic. And I'll tell you, even on Raw, as much as Seth Rollins said back in 2016, Monday Night Raw has sucked. And Monday Night Raw did suck. The thing they did with Ray, Dominic, Damian Priest, and Bad Bunny, I loved it. That was so well done. I love the fact that Bad Bunny went through the table and between his appearance at WrestleMania on Saturday, having it carry over into Monday Night Raw. Now we know we're going to get Dominic and Priest versus Rey Mysterio and Bad Bunny in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Bad Bunny can go into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2024, and I would have zero issue with it.
Except for if he's in there instead of Cyndi Lauper.
Unless he's in there instead of Cyndi Lauper. But just like with Andy Kaufman, if they put Bad Bunny in, I would be, okay, at least it was Bad Bunny.
Yeah.
Because he's even over the Cocoa Beware line, Jay.
He is.
Speaking of people who...
He actually has a dissenting opinion on Dom and Ray. He actually says he was underwhelmed by the match.
Okay.
So Mike, what was it about the match that you weren't fond of?
I love Ray taking off the belt and hitting him with it. The match was pretty solid. The mom and the sister getting their licks in on Dom. I loved it. My expectations, like if the bar was
with the belt, I was like going, doesn't Rhea do that to him all the time?
As long as Buddy Murphy ain't there. But that match, the bar was down here, and it finished about here. It wasn't all the way up here like the tag team match or the other tag team match or the Intercontinental. Well, the Intercontinental title was on the roof, but the ceiling is the roof. But the fact that I had it so low in expectations and it delivered better, that's why I loved it so much. But speaking of being over the Cocoa Beware line, The Miz and Snoop Dogg come out to announce the attendance for night one. And then, they kind of go back and forth. And then The Miz, Snoop Dogg's like, I could make a match and everything. And out comes Pat McAfee and a huge pop because it's McAfee. And then we get McAfee and The Miz. And, for what it was great to see McAfee. I love the fact that George Kittle came out and clotheslined the shit out of The Miz before McAfee hit him with a finisher and pinned him. I enjoyed that. That was great. Even though he said he wasn't going to be at WrestleMania, I had a feeling we were going to see Pat McAfee at some point. And I really loved that that's how they got him involved. What was your thoughts about McAfee?
So one thing I'm going to say, and this is just general about WrestleMania and general about the night, the Raw after WrestleMania. WWE used to try to put in surprises, whether it be the WrestleMania card or whether it be the Monday after Raw. And usually it would be the Raw after WrestleMania where, like, the real big surprises happen.
Right.
McAfee showing up did not shock me or surprise me. Honestly, I was more shocked at what happened night two. Not just because of the genetic issues with the McMahon family quads, but it was good to see McAfee. McAfee does completely fine in the ring. And one thing that was interesting for me, though, was like they didn't really announce Snoop Dogg ahead of WrestleMania as like the host, and then all of a sudden he was like host and making matches, and it was funny putting Miz in bad situations for 2 nights in a row and all the shenanigans that happened. But I was glad to see McAfee. McAfee did say not that long ago, he's like, hey, I don't know if I'm gonna come back and do announcing full time, but I do need to build up my WWE Hall of Fame resume.
I would not be surprised if that man holds a championship at some point, if I'm being honest. It's either him or Logan Paul or even Bad Bunny. I wouldn't be surprised if either of those three actually became like WWE or Universal Champion. Yeah. Would not be surprised.
Not anytime soon.
No. We don't know when the hell that's going to be. But speaking of Logan Paul,
Exactly.
And Seth Rollins had a match at night one, and I mean, I'm sorry. There was one thing I forgot about McAfee and the Miz and all that stuff that was brought up, and it was one of those things that it really stuck on my craw, and it really has been bothering me since Saturday. It's been in the back of my mind, and I said I'm going to mention it. I'm going to mention it. I'm going to mention it. When McAfee was coming out to the ring, Michael Cole said, "May I have your attention, please?" And I quote, "McAfee is one of two commentators that is undefeated at WrestleMania, I being the other one." Wrong. Michael Cole, you are, I cannot believe I'm going to say this. Michael Cole, you're the only announcer who is undefeated at WrestleMania. Pat McAfee lost to Vincent Kennedy McMahon last year. I know people like to forget about it, like Ted DiBiase was WWE champion at the WWE's The Main Event back in 88 or 89.
88 in February.
Yep.
And
so I got it right.
There was a show that they did, I think it was Boston Garden, a night or two after. And back in the day on Nesson, they actually showed Ted DiBiase at Boston Garden with the Winged Eagle title, and he was the WWF champion. So, I think he legit had it for a couple days before President Jack Tunney decided to put his nose into the $1 Million Man's business, which led to the WrestleMania 4 champion tournament.
Yep.
Brother.
But I had to mention that because that was something I was like, why are you going to say something like that? I know that a lot of people try to forget the fact that Vince McMahon beat Pat McAfee at WrestleMania in a bullshit throwaway match and then ate the second worst Stone Cold Stunner of his life afterwards. But come on, we're not that stupid. I might be brainless, but I'm not stupid. Case in point, now we get to Seth Rollins and Logan Paul. They had a great match. Seth Rollins, I don't know what you want to call what he wore to the ring.
They showed a clip of Becky Lynch having it was the first time she saw him in that outfit, and she was like, I think I need a new outfit. She was like, he's done me for WrestleMania. What the heck else can I do? I don't my wife, who is not a big wrestling fan, anytime Seth Rollins comes on and she hears his song, she's like, I need to see what he looks like.
I do too. It's now my favorite thing on Monday Night Raw is I need to see what Seth Rollins is wearing. Because if it's not as or more ridiculous than it was the week before, I'm going to be disappointed. Because he sold us on this, and he's got to keep it going.
I hope next week, because of the Super Mario Brothers movie, that he comes out with the Mario boots and something ridiculous.
He's going to come out just like Mario.
And, yeah.
The Mario boots the match. He looked like Santa Claus after he had a bout with anorexia. That's what he looked like. It looked like a really bad Santa outfit.
Bad Santa. I see what you did there.
But, I mean, honestly, the match was great.
Logan Paul had a really, really good match.
Yep.
Rollins going over was the right call. Seth Rollins had done some interviews pre-WrestleMania, kind of talking about being a bit bent out of shape, that Cody Rhodes was in the position that he was, and that, hey, I've been here through the highs and lows, and I am, the guy that keeps on keeping on, and I am at the top of the card. I should be that match. I'm going to say, next here, like I understand where Seth Rollins is coming from. And if you're talking about the people that the tribal chief has kind of gone through since he's become champion, the one person he didn't really have a super clean finish with was Seth Rollins. You know, he wasn't super strong over him.
Nope.
So having another match with Seth Rollins makes an awful lot of sense, whether we see something like that at SummerSlam or whether we see it, you know, maybe next year in Philadelphia. Or, I mean, you got clearly a dude like Walter who, in his mind, he's going to main event WrestleMania next year.
But he's definitely going to main event WrestleMania next year. He could wrestle both nights, all the matches, both nights, and I'd be okay with it.
Seth Rollins and Logan Paul put on a really, really good match, really solid performance. And so one thing I have to say that's really interesting for this is months ago, Logan Paul signed, and they called it a long-term deal with WWE. And then we heard last week, all of a sudden, that Logan Paul, like, as of the end of WrestleMania, like, he didn't have a contract with WWE. It's like going, what's long-term? 3 months? 6 months? That's a long-term deal. But one thing that did come up that I read before the show is that Logan Paul did sign a new deal with WWE. I mean, it's a complete no-brainer. This dude gets the wrestling business. Not only does he get the wrestling business, but he also can do the physical stuff in the ring better than most of the people who do it full time.
Hangman Adam Page needs a new finisher.
Yeah.
That's what I have to say for that. And honestly, like you said, this is a no-brainer. He has proven he gets a reaction from the fans. He can talk on the microphone. He can wrestle. And I'm not even kidding. His buckshot lariat looks better than Hangman Page's, and Hangman Page's is pretty awesome. He understands the logic behind it. He's going to be a good storyteller. He is. The only thing he's lacking is he's kind of skinny. I mean, Seth Rollins is too. Cody Rhodes was for a bit of time.
Right.
But, I mean, other than the fact that he just looks like a normal dude out there, he gets it. He respects the business. He put in the time and the effort. So him coming back, I have no problem with. And honestly, his match at WrestleMania against Seth was enough I needed to see. He gets it, and again, he's going to end up being a champion at some point.
Better match than John Cena.
Jay, everybody had a better match than John Cena except for Shane McMahon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the last match was the 6-woman tag match, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
The last match for what?
Night 1. Because we talked about the tag team main event. We talked about the tag team turmoil.
Yeah, as far as matches that happened, yes.
I'm sorry. That's I brainless myself a little bit. I apologize.
Right.
But the 6-woman tag match between Damage Control and the women's tag team champions Becky, Lita, and Trish is the last match that we need to discuss for WrestleMania Night 1. For me, Lita looked her age. Trish Stratus looked like she stopped wrestling maybe 6 months ago with the you still got a chance. Her little, her flip thing where she tried to grab, I believe it was Bailey off the thing and do the flip off of the top with her legs where Lita and Becky had to hold her up. Yeah, that looked a little clunky. But other than that, Trish looked awesome.
Right.
But Lita just, I don't know. I just wasn't impressed with Lita on Saturday. And the match just, I don't know. I wasn't that into that match.
Yeah, the match was just kind of there. And again, you go from Saturday and then you go to Monday, where, I mean, I think it's interesting that, hey, Damage Control showed up the first big event that Triple H was in charge of.
Huge.
And you have them on this in a match that, like, I think the idea was, hey, you're putting them in there with legends, and I'm going to include Becky in the legends.
Oh, absolutely.
To help elevate them, and even if they don't win, it doesn't necessarily look bad on them, right? But you go from that where you have this faction that's kind of, I'm not going to say spinning their wheels, but like they haven't gotten a ton of traction, and you have them with a bunch of, legends, and the match is kind of what it is. And then you get to Monday, and they were supposed to have a more prominent role. Bayley was supposed to have something, and then it ends up getting cut from the show. Again, you go from what we had on Saturday, and then you go to
Monday.
What we had on Monday, and there are rumors that maybe Bayley is doing what her best friend did.
She's not very happy.
Not very happy, and possibly walked out. And apparently there are a lot of people that are possibly not very happy about Monday and what have you. But when it comes to all this, Lita definitely did not look great. She certainly was putting in effort, and it just wasn't super. It wasn't clean, and it didn't look like great.
Right.
But most of what she did, but you know what? Kudos to her. She's 47 years old. She's not in the ring all the time, and she did okay. Wasn't great, but she was not as good as Trish was, and
but she wasn't as bad as John Cena.
Yeah.
Oh,
but they specifically in this match, held Trish out of the ring, and I was like going, okay, are they holding her out of the ring because they want her to get the hot tag, or are they not sure if she could carry this? But once she got tagged in, like you said, she did really, really well, and she's a Hall of Famer, and she's one of the greatest women performers of all time, and she did not do anything to hurt that at all. The idea she was going to turn on her team did not come to fruition, although I still would not mind seeing something whether it's Trish and Becky at SummerSlam or something along those lines. I wouldn't mind seeing that, and at this point, I don't want Becky to become Kane or the Big Show. So if they turn Trish, for a couple of months to set up that match, I'm all for it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Now, that's night one. So let's get into night two. We started off night two with no surprise, probably the least surprising thing, was Brock Lesnar and Omos was the first match of night 2. The only reason it would have been surprising is it wasn't the first match of night 1, so Brock could have gotten on his plane and fly away. But for what it was, I loved that match. Omos looked overpowering. Brock Lesnar looked vulnerable. Brock Lesnar looked like he was overmatched. And then he hit him with a couple of German suplexes, picked him up, F5'd him, the place erupted, and he pinned him for the win.
When it comes to big men matches like this, there are a couple of bars that I set. One of which is Giant Gonzalez versus Undertaker, which is not a high bar to jump over. Another one that is not a high bar to jump over is El Gigante versus Sid in the stretcher match. I had high hopes for that as a teenager, of that being a great match, because I like seeing a couple of big dudes beating the crap out of each other. And this match exceeded the expectations of both of those by a lot.
Wait, you're going to talk about all these big man matches, and you're not even going to mention the one match you definitely should have mentioned, which was the colossal matchup between the Total Package Lex Luger and the Motor City Madman from Clash 13?
I mean, that's a great match. Great match.
I'm disappointed. I'm even sad.
Very sad.
But for what it was, it exceeded my expectations. I was hoping it was going to be a quick thing. They did that perfectly and got Brock. Allegedly, Brock was supposed to get on the plane. Obviously, we found out more on Monday. I even popped when he came out on Monday. But it was good for what it was.
Honestly, it was a completely solid match.
Yeah. That was
Omos to be in there with one of your top stars. He looked really strong. And you had Brock Lesnar with a match. And I don't think he could have done anything more in a match where he won to make Omos look good. So they did that, and then, again, we go to Monday, and, it was what it was.
I honestly, with what they did, if you're talking about what they did with Cody and Brock and all that, I'm going to play devil's advocate and say I'm going to let this play out.
I'm more talking about what happened with Elias.
Why? That was the one thing you didn't have to bring up. Because the fact that Bayley didn't have her segment on Raw, and they had Seth Rollins go out there, and during the commercial break, they basically told him, all you're going to do is stand in there, the fans are going to sing, and then you're going to leave. So he didn't even get to do what he was going to do. So that we already knew what was going to happen, because Vince McMahon puts his giant muscle man against his favorite wrestler in WWE. Or as Kevin Patrick said, Omos versus – oh, no, it was – I'm sorry. It was WWE Creative, the faux Twitter account that said Omos versus Elias. What is this, WrestleMania Night 3? But it didn't even need to happen. I feel bad for Elias. The only thing that I could say that's good for him is the fact that he doesn't have that. He's got his beard back.
Right.
But I don't know. It just proves, like you said, somebody else was calling the shots on Monday than they were on Sunday and Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we got, unlike the Saturday show, we got the Fatal 4-Way Women's WrestleMania Showcase between the team of Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, Natty Neidhart and Shotzi Blackheart. I really have to dig deep into my non-existent brain to pull these names out. Sonya Deville and my favorite wrestler in the women's division, Chelsea Green, and then Shayna Baszler and that dead weight waste of a women's wrestler that was her tag team partner. That's all I'm going to mention about the match, Jay, other than the fact that on a WrestleMania card where Omos, Dominic Mysterio, and Ronda Rousey were on, John Cena was the worst performer. And that's only because Shane McMahon had an unfortunate mishap happen.
You know, when they first brought up Shotzi to the main roster, there was part of me that says, hey, you know what? She might not be the greatest performer in the ring, but she has a unique look, unique presentation, and this is sports entertainment, so let's see what they do with her. But she has been so poor in the ring that you just can't overlook it. As much as she's got an interesting look, you know, she has the tank that they brought but apparently didn't use. But she just has not gotten it. And this could have been one of those moments that she could have shined on, and it didn't happen. Clearly, though, down the road, we're going to end up seeing Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler going and probably winning the women's tag team championships in the not so distant. It might even happen at WrestleMania Backlash in Puerto Rico.
I have nothing to add to that match because I'm trying to figure out why, and nothing against Liv Morgan, but why did Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, Ronda really, really, really rotten wrestler Rousey, freaking Sonya Deville, and I like Sonya Deville, Natty Neidhart, and I like Natty Neidhart, and like you said, Shotzi Blackheart, why are they getting matches? And all we get is Bobby Lashley coming out with the Andre the Giant trophy with his music, and he gets to do his little thing, and that's it. He just holds up his trophy and celebrates, and that's all we see of Bobby Lashley. But we get Ronda Rousey, who fucking sucks.
1 week ago tonight, there was a certain performer who got a louder pop than anybody, specifically in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. And that man did not have an opportunity during WrestleMania weekend, even though it was supposed to happen. He and Bobby Lashley were supposed to have a thing. When LA Knight was eliminated, that crowd was booing like crazy. When he was in the ring doing his thing, the crowd went bonkers. That crowd, more than anything, wanted to see LA Knight do something. Again, you go from heck, you even go to SmackDown and what was going on, and you know Vince still is pissed off that Maximum Male Models didn't take off, and it's all LA Knight's fault because he didn't titillate everybody with the senses as he was supposed to.
Let me talk to you. Yeah.
The crowd was so into LA Knight, and they couldn't find like something for him to do during WrestleMania weekend. Like you had to bring Shane in, but you couldn't find a way for LA Knight, to be able to do something, in front of the crowd that really wanted to see him. Yeah.
I agree, Jay. Those two, and it's not even just LA Knight. Bobby Lashley deserved it. This was a man who retained the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 2 years ago. Last year, he beat Omos. And Omos wrestled Brock Lesnar this year, the guy that Bobby Lashley should have wrestled. But because Bray Wyatt had the sniffles or he was butthurt or Vince McMahon's back, so Bray's fired again. So Bobby Lashley's coming out with the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal Trophy, which, by the way, you just stop naming that match that. Because all you're doing is you're putting like 6 or 7 of you're putting like maybe 1 or 2 top guys. You got maybe 3 or 4 decent mid-card guys. You got a whole bunch of freaking tag teams. And then you got Madcap Moss. I was just, let me tell you about that. Let me talk to you. Yeah. Because honestly, the last 4 guys in the ring, if any of those guys had won between LA Knight, Bronson Reed, Braun Strowman, maybe not Strowman as much, or Bobby Lashley, I would have been okay with that. But it's like you're putting Humberto Carrillo and Angel Garza. When was the last time they were seen on SmackDown or any television? I mean, Luke, Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, that's all they did. I didn't understand why they did it. And now I'm embarrassed as a fan of Andre the Giant. Because I hold a very special place for that man in my heart. And when they announced that this was going to be the thing 9 years ago, and I was so excited because I love Andre, and they're celebrating Andre in the best way possible because Andre the Giant was the king of the Battle Royal. And then you flushed the match down the toilet by having Madcap Moss win it last year. By having people like Mojo Rawley win the thing. The Big Show. The Big Show? Really? Does the Big Show really need to win the Andre the Giant? Wait, because he's a giant. He was the giant of WCW, pal.
Better than Q.
But
Marshall.
Hey, the only good thing the Big Show has ever done I almost said WCW. In AEW, they're not that far off. The only thing that he has done good in AEW, which is better than anything I could say in his 20-plus years he was in WWE, is that he beat QT Marshall. So that's all I got to say for that. And I don't have anything else to say about the Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match because I didn't get Bobby Lashley and I didn't get LA Knight because Ronda Rousey needed to have a wrestling match.
Yeah.
But luckily for us, after that dumpster fire of a women's tag team match, we got some real wrestling in the third match. And I promise you, everyone, just like at Clash of the Castle, when Sheamus and Gunther went at it for the Intercontinental Championship, I was nowhere near my phone when Sheamus, Drew, and Gunther were wrestling because I was glued to the television. I saw chops, and I saw chops, and I saw more chops. Between the 3 of them, they delivered 78 chops. Drew ate 40. I loved every second of that. And you know how much of a fan I am of Sheamus and how much I love that man. I hate to say it, the booking decision was right. As disappointing as I am that my boy Sheamus is not the Intercontinental Champion right now, Gunther winning that match, I had 0 issue with. It was the right call. I'm sorry.
WWE had some opportunities this weekend to decide left or right with a couple things. Clearly with the tag team championships, they're like, you know what? The Usos have broken every record that we have.
Yep.
They don't need to keep the titles.
Nope.
But when it came to Gunther, they decided we want to continue forward with this. I thought that they were going to go in the direction of like, let's have Gunther lose, but he's not going to be the person pinned, but we're still going to bring him forward to be a main event player. Well, they decided, no, we want to put him forward as a main event player, and he's going to be the Intercontinental Champion. Again, this is the tale of Triple H booking over the weekend, and I am praying to the Lord above that Vince doesn't do anything to screw with this starting.
He will.
That actually sees, finally sees the light that, like, holy shit, this dude could go in the ring. He's got a really good presentation. He's kind of old school, but people love him and gravitate towards him. Let's see what the hell happens. I hope that the mustache isn't getting in the way of his brain waves, because I think it might.
Jay, he hasn't done anything in all of his years of booking that have proven to me that he knows what the fuck he's doing. Yes, he gets lucky when he has a monsoon of gorillas and a dead man that he can book around. But for every Undertaker, there's a Red Rooster. For every Kane, there's a Dr. Isaac Yankum DDS. For every Demolition, there's a Repo Man.
For every Hacksaw Jim Duggan, there's a Duke Dumpster Drosy.
I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. But I got a crazy thought. Like, either Gunther's going to win the Money in the Bank, and I really do. It's either going to be him or LA Knight. In my heart of hearts, it's going to be one of those two. Yeah. But if Gunther wins the Money in the Bank, could you imagine, like, him breaking the Honky Tonk Man's record, which is basically what they're doing now? It's as clear as day. That's what we're going to do now. They're going to have him. He's going to vacate that. I don't need this anymore. I'm no longer Intercontinental. And he's just going to vacate it. And that's going to be such a great reign, because, like, he did more for the Intercontinental Championship than anybody in the history of the company.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had zero issue with the booking call. And that's coming from a Sheamus fan who wanted to see the Ultimate Grand Slam Super Duper Championship finally occur. But I love that match to a point. Are you ready for this? TLC2 at WrestleMania 17 has officially been knocked off the top of my podium as my favorite match at WrestleMania, because that Intercontinental Triple Threat match was my favorite match ever at WrestleMania. I fucking loved it.
It was great. And Triple H said in the press conference after night 2, only one person won, but all 3 men were elevated, and he's 100% right. It was such a joy.
Oh, yeah.
That all of them, like, got their asses kicked in that match. And it's the type of match that, like, I would watch over and over and over again, because, again, like, when you're watching professional wrestling, you want it to for me, I want it to feel like more like a real fight versus a choreography. And that's nothing against the matches that have a lot of choreography, because I have an awful lot of respect for the athleticism that goes into that. But I prefer seeing a match like this any day of the week over one where there's 5,000 super kicks and a whole bunch of, like, flipping going on. I freaking love this match. You got 3 big dudes just absolutely pulverizing each other. And not only do they, it's not a wrestling match.
It's a brawl.
It's like you get to see them, like, physically on their chest, on their body. They have gone through a thing. All of them.
Yep. My favorite thing was after the match on Sunday, and there's a picture. Somebody took a picture of Sheamus and Drew after the match, and Sheamus with the caption, "Even after what we went through pint after pint after pint. Man, that was just so much. I enjoyed that so much. I really did. It was such a beautiful match. I enjoyed it. It's officially, 22 years. It finally became my new favorite match at WrestleMania, and it dethroned a match that was on there for over 2 decades.
Yeah.
And like you said, I could go back and watch it again. I may go watch it again at some point this weekend. It was that good.
I mean, I don't know if I'm going to watch it as much as I watched Clash 13, but, I'm going to watch it again.
Yeah?
Yeah!
It won't be Sheamus and Daniel Bryan from 28, but it'll get close.
I mean, that's not asking a lot of your time.
Party's over, Grandpa.
I mean, this isn't like, Cassius Ohno in a match against Riddle.
Bro. And he gets stuck between them. I'm still convinced that they edited that out. I swear, you and I both saw it. He got stuck between the mat and the bottom rope. You can't tell me otherwise. And the only thing better was his match against Riddle, where he somehow managed to gain 70 pounds from the time the bell rang till about 2/3 into the match.
Speaking of which, Nigel McGuinness is all elite.
I'm shocked. Stunned. Anywho. Well, oh, well. Anyway. Honestly, I'm sorry. It was funny because we were talking about it. Nicole goes, today's Good Friday. And I said, oh. I was like, yeah. I was like, what's funny? You know what I gave up for Lent? I didn't watch AEW or give a shit about them for 40 days. I could really care less. I really could. They haven't done anything to drag me in, and my favorite wrestler is very nice, very evil, and very injured. So,
yeah.
But good for Nigel. You knew he was going to find some work. But I thought it was interesting because somebody was like, "Oh, they're going to do All In," and we'll get into that. But they're going to do All In August, and they were like, and somebody was like, "I'm going to book this," and it was Nigel McGuinness versus Bryan Danielson,
which is a fine match to book 10 to 15 ago.
Yeah, in 2009.
Year 2000.
Oh, man. Oh.
So, anyway, moving on.
Bianca had her defended her Raw Championship against Asuka.
Yep.
Solid match for what it was.
Really good, but I mean, when you compare it to the championship match we had the night before, it just paled in comparison, and it was nothing wrong with either of these women in this match. Really good match, and they did the best they could with the time that they were allotted, and I have nothing against this match. Really, really solid stuff in it. Putting Asuka in there, I have a great love for Asuka. But, after the couple times where it felt like it was time for Bianca to lose the title, it was clear to me like WrestleMania was not another time for her to possibly lose the title. And it feels like she's going to have the title for a reasonable amount longer than she is than her current reign. And her and Asuka really did put on a really solid performance, and I enjoyed this match, but it just wasn't as good as the Women's Championship match in night one.
I'll say this. Nobody was more excited or happier for that match than Kinsley was on Sunday because her favorite wrestler, Bianca Belair, beat Asuka, much to the chagrin of myself because I really wanted to see, and nothing against Bianca by any means. Nothing against Bianca. I think she is great. I have no problem with her being the women's champion for Raw. She is a great face for this company, but I thought this was Asuka's time, and I was a little disappointed she didn't win.
Asuka, as much as they have misbooked an awful lot of people from NXT, Asuka in general on the main roster has been booked pretty well outside of WrestleMania season. Actually, I would say she's been booked extremely well outside of WrestleMania season.
Agreed.
But when it comes to WrestleMania, for whatever reason, they don't want to pull the trigger with her and don't want to make her like a ginormous star. And I'm sure part of that has to be the fact that like she doesn't speak English extraordinarily well, and despite all that, I think she actually communicates really well with the audience. She doesn't need to say crap, but people know exactly what she's saying and exactly what she's doing.
She's like
all that being, I'm fine with Bianca winning this match. She just needed a dance partner for WrestleMania, and she found a really good one in Asuka, and they had a really good match. And I'm okay with that.
Agreed. And she's over at WrestleMania. She has not won a match at WrestleMania. I was looking at the records because I actually saw the records of everybody at WrestleMania. That's how I know that Pat McAfee is above the Coca Beware line. Not only that, Pat McAfee has more wins at WrestleMania than Roddy Piper, Big John Studd, Ric Flair, or Dusty Rhodes. But that was just an interesting tidbit. Speaking of blood feuds, we finally got, hopefully, the end of this whole Edge Spooky Pals storyline as we got, and my goodness, what an entrance by Edge. That was awesome. I love that. Spooky Finn came in there and did his thing. I love that. Solid match, minus the little bump where he got cracked in the head and had, I think it was like 14, 15 staples put in his head.
14 staples. You want to talk about somebody who's a badass. Finn Balor, not only was it the staples that he had to deal with, but apparently he had like I think it was a second grade tear on his quad that happened like 3.5 weeks before WrestleMania. He should have been out 6 to 8 weeks, but working with the medical staff, he was able to be healthy enough to perform at an extremely high level in a match against Edge, where storyline-wise, I understand the fact that Edge wins this match because, hey, his wife got hit by a chair, and he's out for revenge for not only his family, but for the faction he started that turned against him and him winning. All that being said, I still think it was the wrong decision to have Edge win this match. This, according to Edge, is probably his final WrestleMania, or at least final WrestleMania as a active performer.
Yeah.
And, part of your thing on the way out is to do the honors. And I know the Spooky Pals, for the most part, have gotten over on
Spooky Pals.
But if you want to sit there and make this faction into, a bigger deal, I think it would have been a better idea to have Finn Balor win this match. As much as I understand booking-wise and understand storyline-wise why this is done, if Edge is legit coming to the end of his career, I think it would have been better off to have Finn win this match and have the Spooky Pals get elevated more than that they are at this moment. All that being said, I hope that Finn Balor's head does not look like Joey Mercury's eye did after he the ladder in his face. I mean, it looked like it sucked. The fact that Edge was able to think on his feet and all right, I'm gonna go and grab a whole bunch of different things from under the ring and make it seem like I'm going to do this while the medical staff was able to work on Finn. The fact that Finn took those staples without a numbing agent and finished the damn match.
It was like when Cesaro, remember when Cesaro hit his teeth in the top of the ring post and then continued the match? That's some toughness right there. Cesaro and Finn Balor. Ton of respect for Finn for all that. The tear in the quad, the 45 staples in the head. Speaking of tearing quads, The Miz and Snoop Dogg came out to not only announce the second day attendance, but the total attendance of 161,000. My God, The Miz was awesome as the host. He killed it. Even the speaking and all that stuff, and just like even the moments where he even Shane McMahon was like, 161,000, and like he looked at The Miz, and The Miz was like 892 or whatever the hell it was for the total number. Everything was great. Miz was mad as Snoop Doggy Dogg. Snoop Dogg said, "I'll put you in another match." Here comes the money hit. Shane McMahon comes out to the huge pop. This is the first time we've seen Shane McMahon since he got fired at last year's Royal Rumble. So obviously, he talked to his dad. He probably talked to Endeavor too and said, "Hey, you got to get me in this thing." And he goes out there. He does his really shitty punches. The Miz runs off the ropes. Shane McMahon jumps up. He lands awkwardly. The Miz comes running back. There's no Shane McMahon because he's down. Tore his quad. Clearly, he inherited his father's quads.
Genetic jackhammer.
I feel bad. Honestly, Jay, I do. I feel bad for Shane McMahon. But I was in tears. I was laughing so hard when it happened. I am so sorry. Forgive me, whoever I have to talk to. I am sorry. But I laughed hysterically when he hit the ground. I'm sorry.
Cousin Bobby, you are in luck. This weekend, Easter weekend, there's a man named Jesus who went on a cross, who was there to take away the sins of the world. You talk to him, your sins will be forgiven. All will be right with the world. All that being said, apparently, I am just not great at spotting whether or not it's fake or real. Like last year, I was convinced that nothing really happened to Rick Boogs. That was supposed to happen. I was like going, "Oh, that's weird. Shane's on the ground and acting like nothing happened, or acting like his legs all janked up." And I mean, kudos for them for on their feet. Immediately, Snoop Dogg just goes and punches out Miz. And
Snoop was awesome. Snoop knew what to do before WWE did. Snoop Dogg sniffed it out better than WWE did. He improvised. He punched him. He hit him with a people's elbow, which was better than The Rock's people's elbow. Picked up the win, and now Snoop Dogg is above the Coco Beware line.
Well, I mean, he is in the Hall of Fame already.
But he's more deserving than Coco Beware.
That 100% true.
Because he's 1-0 at WrestleMania. He sang Sasha Banks out one year. He showed up. He did the Bunny Battle Royal thing.
Yeah.
Snoop Dogg. Love having him in the Hall of Fame because he's well-deserving. Unlike El Jefe's dad, Drew Carey.
Yeah.
All right, well, Jay, there's only one last match to discuss about WrestleMania, and that is the main event between Cody Rhodes and Roman. I'm sorry. Let me. May I? Can I retract that real quick and do him right? We got the match between the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, and 7 consecutive years Marquee Award winner Roman Reigns. The only wrestler, the only human being, mind you, who is a 7-time Marquee Award winner for winning an award 7 years in a row. And he's going to win it again this year. Spoiler alert.
You want people talk about the streak. This is the streak.
He has to be out of wrestling for an entire year to be ineligible.
Yeah.
But we had the main event. We finally got Roman, the Tribal Chief, and Cody Rhodes. Do we finally get the roads to WrestleMania? Do we get the end of the story? Solid match. They told a great story. Solo getting involved, getting tossed from the match. Excuse me. The Usos getting involved. Sami and KO getting involved. All sorts of craziness. A lot of false finishes. Solid match. And then the ending happened.
The ending of this match, like, I remember a handful of years ago, everybody was expecting Roman to defeat Brock Lesnar in the main event of WrestleMania. There were rumors that Brock's contract was up, and this was the end of the road for Brock. So it was Roman's time. And then when Brock ended up pinning Roman at the end of that match, there was a little bit of the like, huh. You know, when they made the decision to have Gunther continue his title reign as Intercontinental Champion, to have him pass all the legends that have held that title for as long as they did, nobody longer than the Honky Tonk Man, which was like 14 and a half months. So we're clearly heading towards that. You know, the next person for Roman Reigns to possibly pass as far as a title reign goes is Hulk Hogan, which was 4 years. That means that Roman Reigns needs to hold it beyond next year's WrestleMania for it to become like a next level thing. Now, they clearly want to get him to at least 1,000 days at this point.
Yeah.
Really. But, you know, there have been many times throughout WWE's history where there were moments where they could have and should have pulled the trigger on something. I don't know if they were so scared about the fact that they had taken the tag team titles off the Usos on the first night and said, hey, well, if Roman doesn't have this championship, why would anybody want to follow the bloodline anymore? Because they won't have any titles. They won't be the biggest deal in the world because they got no titles. It's like they should have pulled the trigger. I thought that this was a really good match, and it felt like in the middle of this match, Vince McMahon took back control and said, well, pal, you know what? We can't have somebody from some other company come out and win this thing. That would be just like if Sting came out and beat Triple H at WrestleMania. We all know WCW ain't any better. If AEW guy come and show up and defeat Roman Reigns, this homegrown man. Oh, by the way, Cody's homegrown too.
It's not like Cody Rhodes came up from
and had to go away because you didn't recognize. And that would be my argument against Seth Rollins, who felt that like Cody went away and didn't earn his keep. It's like Cody was in the damn company for 10 years and thought he deserved more. And when the company said, we don't see you like that, he said, well, all right, well, I do see myself like that. I'm going to make it happen.
Okay, I'm going to be really quickly with Seth Rollins, okay? Seth Rollins, you were fortunate enough to, A, be a part of one of the greatest factions in professional wrestling history. The Shield is in the conversation with DX and the NWO as one of the greatest factions of all time, and you can't argue with with what they've done in WWE. Seth Rollins is the only wrestler to ever cash in Money in the Bank at WrestleMania. He did it in the main event at WrestleMania 31. And, oh, by the way, he beat Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar in that match. He beat Brock Lesnar WrestleMania 35 before COVID happened and shit got shut down. He beat Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship.
Yeah.
Cody Rhodes, in 10 years of WWE, went from putting paper bags over people's heads to being Stardust. And they wanted him to continue being Stardust, which he didn't want to do, which is what partially led to him leaving, other than the fact that they were trying to lowball him because they didn't see him for what he was, and now they see him for what he is. I think pulling the trigger is a great decision because you look at it from Vince's perspective. Your big guy that you got from AEW, the guy that they still talk about a year later after he left AEW, was going to become the undisputed WWE World Heavyweight Champion. That's your big middle finger to Tony Khan.
And oh, by the way, that's also a big recruitment tool, which now all of a sudden is vanished. When you end up getting one of the biggest free agents who decided to go to the other place, and you get the biggest free agent tag team to decide to stay at the other place.
My favorite was Dax said this was a no-brainer that they weren't going to be leaving AEW. He said, we weren't going back to WWE no matter what. He goes, the schedule that they have us doing on the road was just too much, and I like being home with my wife and my kids. And honestly, I don't blame him. If that's the reason why he wants to stay in AEW, that's fine. I was actually going to get into this after we got through WrestleMania because I wanted to mention the fact that now that they've re-signed, now that they're AEW Tag Team Champions, I don't want to hear Dax Harwood complain he needs to shut the fuck up. I am tired of listening to him. Oh, yeah, and the Bucky. We're the Tag Team Champions, Ring of Honor, and AAA, and New Japan, but we're not the Tag Team Champions of AEW. Well, when you guys drop the titles in 3 months to probably the Ass Boys or the Young Bucks again or something like that, I don't want to hear it, Dax. I don't. I'm happy you got your money. I'm happy you guys are in a place that's going to let you guys have the schedule you want. I don't want to hear you guys complaining when there's nobody else to wrestle because all you have to do is fight the Gun Club and the Acclaimed. Because the Young Bucks are in the middle of a freaking stupid storyline with the AEW Spooky Pals and the other worst faction in AEW, the Blackpool Combat Club.
Wait. Wrong. What about the QTV faction?
Oh, that's Jay. That's stop. I saw it once. I tried going to the Men in Black headquarters to get the deneuralizer, to deneuralize myself, to pretend I never saw it because I never wanted to see it again. By the way, they're doing Battle of the Belt 6 tonight, and the new Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions, the Lucha Brothers, are defending their tag team championships against QT Marshall and Powerhouse Hobbs.
Props to Powerhouse Hobbs.
Who is your TNT champion?
Get with the hero.
And more likely than not, because I don't see them hot potatoing these titles. But then again, who the hell knows? Because I'm now convinced Tony Khan wants to be Vince McMahon
with a mustache.
With a mustache. That's what I thought the huge announcement was going to be. Oh, I could grow a mustache too. I'm Tony Khan. But go back to the main event. I really thought that Cody was going to go over. I thought it was kind of a letdown. Again, I'm going to see how it plays out because I'm curious to see how this Cody and Brock Lesnar thing works out.
Sure.
And I'm curious to see because I have other theories of who could potentially take the title from Roman Reigns. But one person that nobody's talking about, the only person he hasn't really gone through is Gunther. And even if they don't do it like right away, because I know that Roman's not going to be in Puerto Rico for WrestleMania Backlash. Kind of like what they did, I don't think it was last year, I think it was the year before, where they had Roman come out and said he beat whoever he beat, and then Cesaro came out and the place went nuts. If he went out there and did his thing, acknowledged me, and then like Gunther's music hits and they have that face-to-face, even if it doesn't lead to anything immediately, I want that. I need that.
Champion versus champion, title for title.
Yes. Just like WrestleMania 6.
The ultimate challenge. By the way, I rewatched WrestleMania 6 about a week ago, and the intro done by Vince McMahon, like where like he is full tism, like doing the announcement, like and he talks about the different constellations and like and the two most powerful forces in the universe. Like his over-the-top delivery was so incredible.
I miss the days of him in the 80s and 90s when he was announcing the Royal Rumble and he was announcing the people for the Royal Rumble, because he would go, there was no like half-assing it. Vince McMahon went full throttle. Hercules, the Warlord.
Yeah.
You know, Doug Furnace.
One thing that was one of my favorite little moments, though, that going back to WrestleMania, going back to Cody versus Roman, was seeing -1, a.k.a. Brody Lee Jr., get Cody's belt before the match. I thought it was a cool little touch that they added to it. And like I said, they really did have a banger of a match. I just think that they made a bad choice, a scared choice of not putting the title on Homelander.
He had, as Jim Cornette said, he had job face. This was a thing I used to pick up on a lot in the 90s when I was watching the pay-per-views. Like, I could tell when somebody was about to lose the title or win it. And I'll be honest with you, Jay. Since you made me stay up and watch The Undertaker and Roman Reigns, the only Roman Reigns match that I have watched the night of WrestleMania was his match against Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania 35. Every single other one, I either didn't watch the match or I watched the match later on this week, which is what I did this week. And when I saw Cody come up and I saw his face, I said, yep. I knew it. I saw it in his face. It'd been a long time since I was able to pick up on the, as Cornette says, the job face, because you know you're going to do the job for somebody else.
I know you pick up on the job face when Bayley wrestles, but
Jay, I'm telling you, to this day, WrestleMania 35, when the wacky waving inflatable arm Bayley Buddies didn't inflate, she looked like a child who just walked out of the ice cream shop, licked the cone, and the ice cream fell out and hit the ground. That's exactly what she looked like. She looked like she got the little balloon animal from the guy at the vendor, and then her older brother popped it.
With a couple of buddies.
But, yeah, all in all, I thought WrestleMania was a little underwhelming. I thought the wrestling, for the most part, was good. There was a lot of Cena just really ruined it. Cena in the finish of the main event of night 2 really just no Bobby Lashley, no LA Knight. Hell, no Bray Wyatt. We didn't get Bray Wyatt in the Cinnamon Toast Crunch match. Damn it.
And that was another little minor tidbit with the Dom and Ray match, where it's supposed to be this family feud where like stuff's coming to a head.
Yep.
And you got this Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal box outside of the ring with all these bright, full-colored displays on your graphics, and it's like
Rey Mysterio takes his belt
presentation that feels a little off.
Rey Mysterio taking his belt off and spanking his son on national television with the dancing cinnamon toast crunch thing was just phenomenal. Dom coming out of the car like Randy Marsh in the Little League episode of South Park with his dad's mask on. I love that. The mask was so perfect. And he looked like a tall Rey Mysterio when he came out of the cop car. He did. He cannot wear a mask even though he needs to wear a mask. Oh, is that Ray? Oh, no, that's just Ray's less talented son, Dominic. And it's honestly, and I joke about Dominic Mysterio, but at the end of the day, this is like Joe Montana's kids playing football. This is like Wayne Gretzky's. You ain't going to live up to Gretzky or Montana. Dom could have a really nice career, and I think he is very capable of having a very nice career, but he's not going to be Rey Mysterio.
I mean, not that Wayne Gretzky's brother had anywhere near the career that his brother did have, but he was the head coach of the Danbury Trashers. That's
fuck.
Nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah. Well, one thing we really need to get into is as best as we can, as quickly as we can, if possible. WWE was sold this weekend.
Yeah. There is a lot to unpack with this. There's a lot to unpack with Vince McMahon. The fact that apparently he also, not only did he just get a crap ton of money for WWE, apparently beforehand, he invested heavily into a shoe polish hair dye company.
That sells what, plastic combs?
That also does bad facelift surgeries.
You know, I'm just going to say, since we're on the topic of Vince McMahon and the mustache, real quickly, when you said in the reel that he looked like Clark Gable, and I had to go back because I was like, yeah, he looks like Gomez Adams for sure. He looks like Snidely Whiplash, Dick Dastardly. I could definitely see some of the Vincent Price was pretty spot on too. But when you said Clark Gable in the reel, and then I fell off the couch. I was like, bravo, Jay. I never would have thought of that one. That's a good one. The Gone with the Wind. That was actually Brainless Wife. She was like, he looks like he was in the Gone with the Wind. And I went in there and I looked and I was like, oh my God. I'm like, is that already him in the picture? No, that was the star of the movie. I had way too much fun with Vince McMahon's mustache for memes. And
I'm just throwing out there, did you know that Clark Gable is distant cousins with Cousin Colin?
No. That's something.
Yeah.
That's like my father told me he's distant cousins with Randy Levine, the former voice of the Yukon Huskies radio.
There you go.
But
the dastardly Vince McMahon. So when they were talking about the valuation of WWE, my belief, my thought was that $9 billion was going to buy you the entire company. What ended up happening here is Endeavor paid $9.3 billion, but Vince is still like WWE, like 49% of the company is still owned by the stockholders.
Yep.
So Vince more or less sold the company, and similar to what they were doing with UFC, where it's like, we're going to buy the company for the asset, but we want you to still run it and still do everything that you always do. Vince ended up making, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 billion over this deal, and he didn't have to give up shit. He just got $3 billion and said, oh, by the way, you want to be back in control of creative? You and your mustache, you could take it back. You and those... Honestly, the eyebrows are the things I think that freak me out the most.
Then he's got a puffier face than he did before.
The man is a billionaire. How can't he afford a better dye job? Again, this leads me to believe that he invested heavily into a shoe polish hair dye company.
He looks like Creed when they're trying. When Ryan comes in and tries to streamline Dunder Mifflin, and Creed goes into the printer and takes all the black ink and dyes his hair. What's up, y'all? Hey, man, can we get some more of them monsters? They're really cool. Creed, are you okay? Never better.
Like, I still cannot, like, get by what the dude looks like now.
PA. Or PI.
But the dude ended up, like, making billions of dollars. Now, this deal, like, has gotten the okay, clearly because Vince, head of, the board of directors, made it go through. And outside of something really crazy happening from the U.S. federal government, I mean, this is going to happen in probably 6 months from now. Endeavor will be in control. But we went from what we went with over the weekend with Wrestlemania, and one of the things specifically with the interview with Endeavor, the CEO for Endeavor was talking about how year over year, from last year to this year, the ratings for Raw, despite, being on cable and people saying cable is dying, the ratings are up 9%. And when they're talking about Fox and they're talking about SmackDown, they said year to year, ratings are up 7%. That's great. It really is. When you sit there and you're able to get a net positive in ratings year over year, that is freaking awesome. Here's my caveat to this. Most of that year has been under Triple H. I would say most of the gains you're talking about in this interview you're doing with Vince McMahon is on the shoulders of Triple H. But you have now let Dick Dastardly back in charge. Those highest are going up are going to plummet because of what shit we saw on Monday. We had Triple H go out on camera and more or less lie to the people. Nothing is going to change. And quite literally, as he was saying that, things were changing behind the scenes because Dick Dastardly was sitting there with his mustache, and he's probably sitting there twirling it. They don't know what's going on, pal. And they're going to have once again go out there on SmackDown tonight and lie to the crowd saying nothing is going to change. And guess what? Everything is changing. And those positive directions for WWE as far as numbers go, as far as what they're doing in the United States, as far as viewership, is going to go down the shitter if Vince McMahon is 100% back in control, which it appears he is.
You forgot the fact that Muttley will also be there going. That's the most important. I fucking love Muttley.
Yes.
That and when they did the wacky racers, I always picked the Anthill Mob to win every time. Yes.
Vince dastardly.
But one thing that I thought was interesting about this was they did this the breakdown, and of course the CEO of Endeavor is going to be running the whole show, and I think it's like Mike Shapiro, Mark Shapiro, John Shapiro, some Shapiro that was not a general manager in baseball is actually going to be over Vince McMahon's head, and Vince becomes the head of the chair or the head of the board for the WWE aspect, where Israel or Ariel, whatever the dude's name was, I forget, I'm horrible with names, is going to run it for UFC. I laughed when I realized that now that they're under the umbrella of UFC, Ronda Rousey, Brock Lesnar, and Mr. 420 himself, bro, all work for Dana White again.
You know, I was having this conversation earlier this week. I wonder if this happened 5 or 10 years ago, if a guy like Bobby Lashley would have actually had his shot at UFC. You know, Lashley decided against UFC because UFC would not have allowed him to continue to do professional wrestling. And he knew where his gravy train was. He knew where he was earning a living, and it was with professional wrestling. And he wasn't sure that he could, earn the money he needed to for his family by having a exclusive deal with UFC. I think Lashley, if he decided to, he could probably go and still do and win a couple of matches, but I don't think he'd be the top of the card. Where 10 years ago, I think it's possible Bobby Lashley, I don't know if he would have been heavyweight champion, but he could have been a contender for that. And too little too late, I guess, for Lashley as far as trying to make a dream like that come true. But I think there are an awful lot of crossover possibilities with this. You know, UFC never shied away from the fact that WWE stars would show up at their events. They would interview them all the time, and they would say, hey, WWE star The Undertaker is here. And
remember they did that, right, maybe a year or two before his match against Lesnar at 30. The Undertaker was at the thing, and Brock Lesnar walked by him, and he goes, hey, what do you want to do? Huh? Let's go. And I'm like, yo, I'm on board with this Undertaker and Brock Lesnar. Didn't know what it was going to lead to, but,
Yeah.
Which reminds me real quick, I hate to go back to WrestleMania, but do you think, I have to ask, do you think it was the same situation like it was at WrestleMania 30, where Vince was like, okay, I'll give you guys what you want, which is Daniel Bryan winning the WWE Undisputed Championship at WrestleMania, but I'm taking the Undertaker streak from you. People were clamoring for Sami Zayn to get into the main event and have his moment at WrestleMania. Sami Zayn had his moment in the main event of night one, but it cost us Cody winning.
I think part of it is apparently this Brock Lesnar storyline was something that it wasn't something that was brought up recently. This is something that they've been planning. Cody being in the ring with Brock Lesnar, I don't think is going to hurt him long run. I mean, I want to see how they pull off this storyline, and like if they have him job out to Brock and Brock squashes him, that's going to be bad.
Yeah.
But if he looks strong against Brock and they do this right, I mean, this could set up Cody for the future. And you got somebody like Seth who's been a long time company man. Maybe he gets the opportunity that he really thinks he deserves. But at some point in the not terribly distant future, but maybe Cody finally, not only is he chased, but he gets a title that he deserves.
Oh, he's getting the WWE Championship.
Belts and
Seth, I'll tell you right now, in the next year or two, we're going to see both of them as champion. I can almost guarantee it. Because Cody Rhodes is finally going to have his moment. He's going to win the championship. His dad and his brother never won. And Seth Rollins is once again going to be WWE champion or Universal champion or heavyweight champion or the Winged Eagle championship. They're going to both have the title.
Prefer when Cody wins it, as much as it would be great for it to be at like something like WrestleMania, have him win it at MSG. Because that's where his dad had that moment where he had the title in his hand but won by countout.
They could do it exactly because I know this year it's on a Tuesday, the 46-year anniversary of when his dad held the title and everything, which is when I was convinced he was actually going to win the belt. But, injuries happen.
Yeah.
You could do like a Tuesday in Texas type of deal where you can just have it at a random Tuesday. You don't need to have NXT that week or move NXT to Wednesday or whatever. Or have him wrestle at NXT. I don't care. Let him do it there. I think they're going to end up ultimately doing it at SummerSlam, or maybe he wins it at the big show that they do. Maybe it's Money in the Bank when they're back in England.
Clash in the Castle, too.
Or Clash in the Castle, too. He might have better luck than Drew McIntyre.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was interesting because I always thought that about the Daniel Bryan thing where he won the title, but we lost the Undertaker's streak, just like we got Sami Zayn having his moment, and he well-deserved it. I mean, fuck Captain Cupcake. He can go eat a cupcake, all I care. But it costs us Cody Rhodes. It's just a thought.
Yeah. So beyond that, as far as WWE goes, one of the things out there is allegedly Charlotte Flair is taking some time off after WrestleMania and is going to be entering fitness competitions. You know, as much as I was not a fan of her winning the title immediately when she came back, and I wasn't like, she and Rhea tore the house down, and if she wants to go away for a bit and do something that she's got a ton of passion for, that keeps her fresh as far as the wrestling audience goes, I'm all for it. So I hope Charlotte goes out there and gets re-energized, reinvigorated, and it's not even saying that she needs it because, I mean, again, she put on a freaking banger with Rhea.
Hey, power to her. She wants to go and do what she wants to do. That's fine. Make sure she takes her dad with her.
Yeah.
Anytime that man opens his mouth, I swear to God, I'm tired of it.
Beyond that, so with Vince apparently being back in charge, if you're somebody, say, let's name Dakota Kai, if you're, say, Bailey, if you're Karrion Kross, if you're Bronson Reed, if you're Braun Strowman, how do you feel?
Gargano. I'm just going to say this. The first hour of Raw this week was commercial-free. The Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. We got Triple H coming out and doing that pep talk that he gave to get people the, hey, nothing's bad and all this stuff. Then Roman Reigns came out, had his little segment. He talked and everything, and Cody came out and talked, and Brock Lesnar came out and talked and all that stuff. And then we got the stupid Omos versus Elias squash match, and then we got more promos and more promos and more promos. In the first hour of limited or no commercials of Monday Night Raw, we got 4 minutes of wrestling. This is just like when Daniel Bryan was on paternity leave and Vince McMahon said, hey, go watch AEW, tell me what they do good, and you go watch us and tell me what we do, and report back to me. And Bryan Danielson said, they get more wrestling. They have more time for wrestling. You have more time for not wrestling stuff. And I get it because they're sports entertainment. But that is one thing I will always say about AEW. Yes, the booking might be stupid. Yes, the women's division might be an absolute dumpster fire that collided with a train wreck. But at least they have wrestling.
Right.
It might be Orange Cassidy fighting random dudes for the international, formerly known as the All-Atlantic Championship. It might be, I hit them with the guitar. And it might be Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal against the Acclaim or against the Jericho Appreciation Society, or Jericho's going to bury somebody. But at least it's wrestling.
Right.
And it's just, and it's sad because all we got was Elias getting squashed in the start of the 9 o'clock hour match.
Right.
And everything else was promos and vignettes and all that shit.
Oh shit, pal!
It was freaking Theory and Rey Mysterio in a quick match that did more after the match to build up than the actual match did itself. It was bad. That was one of the worst Raws I've seen in a while. You could tell that Vince's DNA was all over it.
Yeah.
The wrong McMahon tore his quad.
So one thing I have to say is the past few years, what they do is they try to hype up the Raw after Mania. Because for a long time, actually, the Monday after Mania was better than WrestleMania. For a long time.
Dolph Ziggler cashed in the Money in the Bank, and one of the loudest pops on the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania was when Dolph Ziggler cashed in on Alberto Del Rio.
In the past
Brock Lesnar
plus years, what have they actually done on the Raw after Mania that actually makes you want to tune in? To me, all they're doing is living off of glories from about 10 years ago. Surprises that they did 10 years ago, and they try to hype it like as if it's a big deal. And then you go and watch the Raw after WrestleMania, and it's a big, it's a letdown. It was nice seeing Riddle come back, and it was like Brock turning on Cody. But like there was nothing special about it. It was a bad show.
They threw the curveball with Brock Lesnar. I'll give him that. If I can actually defend him in this situation, and you know me, I don't want to defend him in any situation. But the fact is that we thought after Brock Lesnar German suplex and F5 Omos that he went, slapped people's five, walked through Gorilla, peaced out, and said, "I'll see you guys at SummerSlam," as he got onto his plane and flew back to Manitoba to Sable. So when, they were like, it was a partner, but it can't be anybody who has, who can fight me for a championship down the road. And then Brock Lesnar's music hit, and it was a surprise. So I'll give him that because I wasn't expecting Brock Lesnar to come out or have him beat the shit out of Cody. But other than that, I agree. It was very lackluster. They relied heavily on, Triple H having his little pep talk thing, and Brock Lesnar, who shouldn't have been there but was there just to kind of surprise people, and I think it was silly.
Yeah.
Because I agree. Because if you think about it, like I said, Dolph Ziggler cashing in against Del Rio. When Brock Lesnar came out the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania 28 and that pop he got when his music hit, do you think about the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania when they were singing Fandango's entrance? I know that's not the same thing, but that was kind of cool. I loved them when they did that. They've done so many things, and I agree they haven't really done anything the last handful of years. The last thing I can remember that was of any substance that happened on the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania was when Roman Reigns beat The Undertaker, and he stood in the ring and let them boo, and the boos poured on him. And then he said, "This is my yard now," and then just dropped the microphone. That was it. That was the last substantial thing they've done on the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. White didn't debut. He was too busy being All Elite and helping Juice Robinson. FTR wasn't even teased. No, they did a U-turn and went back to AEW and won the AEW Tag Team Championships.
And oh, by the way, AEW and All In, I mean, they are, when you're talking about All In, they're going to be at Wembley Stadium in England. And that is a big place to try to sell. And as much as it seems crazy, I think they're making a good choice here. Guess what? TNA, when they couldn't sell out any place in the United States, could sell out an arena, several arenas in England. England loves them, some professional wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
They love themselves, some American professional wrestling. Whenever WWE goes there, it's some of the loudest and hottest crowds you will see. When they did Clash at the Castle, guess what? They sold an awful lot of tickets for that. It was a big deal. AEW, when they have done the Grand Slam in New York City, have sold in excess of 25,000 tickets for a non-pay-per-view. So if they go to Wembley Stadium and sell like 40,000 tickets, you could sit there and make that look like a massive crowd, because 40,000 people is a freaking massive crowd. And you just sit there and make sure you have the stories and the performers that you need in those moments to turn this into a really big thing, because that crowd is going to be loud.
They're going, and you know it, I'm going to say it. You and I both know what I'm going to say. If they want to get as many possible tickets as they can for this show, the main event has to be the Elite versus CMFTR. Tony Khan is going to have to go put on his big boy pants, suck up his entire ego, and kiss CM Punk's ass. Because without, and nothing against a lot of the people, because Bryan Danielson, in my opinion, is still the greatest wrestler on planet Earth right now, after Okada. You're not going to do very well if it's Kenny Omega. I mean, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to do Kenny and the Blow Up Doll again? You're going to bring back the Golden Lovers? So we're going to get Kota Ibushi, Kenny Omega, the Bucks, and Hangman Page versus the Blackpool Combat Club with possibly Takashita? I mean, Jay White, yeah, I know he's English, but, like, what are you going to do with him? Juice Robinson? You think you're going to be able to fill that many people into an arena if Jay White's fighting, like, Ricky Starks? God only knows that Jericho's going to have to wrestle.
Plenty of months to, like, come up with something that is worthy of being in a stadium that could seat 80,000 plus. I mean, I remember back in the day, TNA tried to, I want to say that it was Slammiversary, that they ended up doing in the Alamo Dome, and like, they only ended up with like 5,000 people, but I mean, with the way that they kind of tarped it off and had the people, like, it looked like a good-sized crowd. But AEW will do much more than what TNA did with that stadium show. I think you will end up with over 40,000 people at this show. It's going to be loud, but like I think to watch.
I'm just saying, if they really want to sell all the tickets they possibly can, CM Punk needs to be there.
I agree, even though I really dislike him and think he's just overall bad for the company, but he will pop a number there.
I'll say this. I know that he's been getting a lot of press and a lot of bad heat lately. Danhausen, I don't remember if it was yesterday or Wednesday, made a post. And, you know, he tore his pec at the last pay-per-view they did at Revolution in that Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match. So he has the surgery and everything. And he said, the last month or so has been really tough on me. He goes, because not only have I been trying to rehab from this injury, my cousin, who I was really close to, passed away not too long ago. CM Punk CM Punk is the one of two people that reached out to him to make sure that he was okay, and even went out of his way to buy Danhausen his Holy Grail comic book to help him feel better. I know that CM Punk has a lot of bad publicity. I know that a lot of people feel a certain kind of way about CM Punk. But as somebody like Danhausen, who grew up as a fan of CM Punk, can now say that he has a friend that is CM Punk, or Pepsi Phil, as he likes to refer to as, I really, that meant a lot to see Punk actually go out of his way and be that type of person for Danhausen. The other person being Brody King, Brody King was the other one.
Punk has done things like this in the past. He bought Joey Mercury his house.
He gave everybody in the...
From being best friends with people to bitter enemies in a moment's notice. And you just don't know when it's coming. And that's why I don't think he's a good long-term investment. But if you want to sit there and pop a number all in at Wembley Stadium, you could bring CM Punk in, but don't expect it to be a long ride. Bring him
or a
in.
Fun one.
Yeah.
I still think that's their best bet, and that's what they got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. Couple other minor notes that I have. Apparently the grizzled young veterans are about to finish up with WWE. They have requested their release. Apparently it's been granted. But they did end up showing up for a taping this week. But I think that is the end of their time in WWE, and that's just some wasted talent out there.
It was one of my favorite tag teams in all of NXT. Zach Gibson deserved a lot more than what he got, and putting them in the schism was very, very stupid. The schism or the schism, whatever the hell it's called, has done a really good thing for Ava Raine, but I mean, Joe Gacy's just Aldi's Bray Wyatt, and the grizzled young vets just did not fit in, and that was just, they were doomed. That was NXT's version of Maximum Male Models.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I certainly wish them well on their future endeavors, and
yes,
we'll see what happens with them. And then some sad news. Bushwhacker Butch has passed away. There were bits where you heard that he was in the hospital. Bushwhacker Luke reached out. They started a GoFundMe to try to pay for his medical expenses. And, unfortunately, he succumbed to, what he was dealing with health-wise. But, I always remember my dad, who dislikes professional wrestling an awful lot, always enjoyed the heck out of the Bushwhackers. The fact that, did and licked people's heads. He thought it was like the most ridiculous thing he ever saw, but he loved the Bushwhackers.
For me, I have two memories of the Bushwhackers. The very first show I ever went to was at the Hartford Civic Center. It was supposed to be Survivor Series 1990, but we're not going to talk about how the brainless one would go back in time and beat the shit out of the 7-year-old brainless one. But on the road to WrestleMania 7, they had a show at the Hartford Civic Center. And I saw Hulk Hogan and Earthquake in the main event. I also saw, just like with you, with Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon at Bristol Central for the ladder match, I saw Rick Martel and Jake the Snake wrestle in a blindfold match, even though it was because they were setting up for their WrestleMania match.
Right.
But they might have been the first match. They might have been the second match. They were very early on the card. But the Bushwhackers were at my very first wrestling show, and they fought FM Mark's Hall of Famer, Shauno's favorite tag team, the Orient Express. And they beat the Orient Express.
Yeah.
And you know how you say there's always that moment or a memory that you have with somebody just that sticks out for their career? The year it was, I believe it was Doink the Clown versus Jerry Lawler at Survivor Series when the Doinks were the Bushwhackers and Men on a Mission. And it was one of my favorite matches in Survivor Series because it was just so stupid and over the top that I loved it. So I'm really going to be sad, now the Bushwhacker Butch has passed. I really didn't get a chance to appreciate them when they were the sheep herders, but I am glad that Bushwhacker Luke was able to shed some light on them during the Tales of the Territory, so I appreciate them. And the Bushwhackers, WWE Hall of Famers, Butch, you're going to be missed.
Yeah. So.
Yeah! Whoa!
I think that's about it as far as my main notes. So, what do you got? Anything else, brainless one?
The only thing I want to bring up really, really quickly: 2 matches at WrestleMania got 5 stars.
Yeah.
The main event of night 1, the tag team match between Sami and KO and the Usos, and naturally the triple threat match on Sunday.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that those were the 2 best matches, and they both deserve to be 5 stars.
I mean, my minor quibble was I thought, again, night 1, I thought too many super kicks in the main event.
Agreed.
The no selling of stuff. Overall, for me, if I were rating that main event in night 1, I probably would have gave it 4 stars. I would have given Rhea and Charlotte 5 stars instead of that match. But certainly have nothing against them giving 5 stars to the triple threat match for the IC title. But, I mean, even despite that, Rhea and Charlotte got 4 3/4 stars, and we got 4.5 stars for Cody and Roman, which I think if the ending had been Cody winning, it would have been 5 stars.
5 stars. Agreed. If Solo didn't do what he did, I think that cost him half a point.
Yeah.
And John Cena, in theory, got 2.25 stars, which was lower than anything that wasn't the 2 squash matches involving The Miz.
Right. So,
yeah. I just wanted to mention that. So I think it's time for our good, our bad, and our brainless.
Yeah.
So, Cousin Jay, I know there was a lot of bad and brainless this week, but what do you got for your good?
You know what? There was a lot of good this week, too. And I have to go with Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair. So one question the F and Marks Hall of Famer Chris Brown posed in a chat I was having with him is, who are the people that I felt, and actually the question was for you too, came out of WrestleMania the best? And I want to say that he asked for a woman and a man. So the woman that came out best was Rhea Ripley, and the man who came out best was Gunther.
I agree, 100%.
The coming out of WrestleMania, they were bigger stars, much bigger stars than they were going in, and it was because of the quality of the match they had and the dance partners that they had.
I'm going to say this. Rhea Ripley, just because if there was an end boss of the women's division in WWE, it's Charlotte Flair. And Rhea Ripley had a wonderful match against her, went over, so yes. And Gunther beat 2 former world champions. And
yeah.
He did it convincingly. He got his ass kicked, and he still won the match. And that was the best match. For me, that was the best match. No disrespect to Rhea and Charlotte. That was the best match of the weekend. I would love, in any other, I cannot believe this, in a week where I said that my good was either going to be Sheamus' Intercontinental Champion or Cody Rhodes' champion, and one of those 2 was going to possibly be my mark-out moment of the year. Neither one of them got my good. My good, and I'm gonna explain, goes to all the non-WWE people who participated in WrestleMania. I'm not including John Cena in this because, yes, I know he's in Hollywood, and he's now Peacemaker and all this stuff. He's still a 16-time world champion and has main evented a ton of WrestleManias. So he doesn't he's excluded from this. I'm talking about Logan Paul, who had a great match against Seth Rollins, once again, proving that he's his worth. Bad Bunny, who helped Ray make sure that Dom didn't get that, the chain and hit Ray with it, and he grabbed it, helped Ray win the match at WrestleMania. Pat McAfee, although he could probably be in that conversation because it's Pat McAfee and I love it. Kittle with a textbook clothesline?
Yeah.
But Snoop Dogg saving the segment on night 2 secured it for me. Because up until that point, it was going to be the triple threat match for the Intercontinental title. Snoop Dogg, Bad Bunny, Logan Paul, all those guys stepped up. They got it for me this week because they were very integral to the success of WrestleMania.
Yeah.
What do you got for your bad?
I'm going with Vince seemingly back in charge. Dick Dastardly with his mustache and everything that goes with that. Like, I'm happy that we can continue our podcast without having to change everything we do because he sold to the Saudis. I don't love the fact that this means that we get more of Vince McMahon's brain on our TV every week.
This is such good shit, pal.
I don't need to see it. And the fact that Vince went out there in that interview that he had on CNBC where they asked him, are you going to be part of the creative process? And he said, yes and no. And he lied there. He said, oh, I'm not going to be in the weeds.
Just lying in the weeds.
Clearly, you love being in the weeds. And you've scared away an awful lot of talent from the company already. And it sounds like several talent that are going to be scared off into the hands of Tony Khan or Impact Wrestling or New Japan.
A name to look out for is Drew McIntyre. His contract ends in July. Just putting it out there. And a lot of people who got those new contracts, I think it was in 18 or 19, they all signed 5-year contracts when AEW came in. A lot of those contracts are going to be coming to the end soon. And I believe Seth Rollins is up in probably another year too.
Right.
For me, I'm going with John Cena and Austin Theory at WrestleMania. I don't want to keep beating this dead horse into the ground, but when you have a former world heavyweight, a former 16-time world champion, the face of WWE for the last 20 years, and he looked worse than the fact that he was the worst wrestler on a card that included Dominic Mysterio, Omos, and Ronda Rousey. That's all I needed. John Cena and Austin Theory. More so Cena gets my bat for this week.
Okay.
I can't wait for this one. What is your brainless?
I have to go with the Auschwitz thing. You do not let something like that go. I have no doubt that, like, if somebody showed Triple H and or Vince McMahon, this vignette for going into the match, they're like, oh yeah, that looks great. Had no idea that it was Auschwitz. I'm sure, 100% sure of that. But there was somebody somewhere that knew that this was. And it should never have gotten by anybody. As much as they're trying to play off this Dom Mysterio, storyline, like, oh, he went into the big house. That's not the big house that you want to showcase and you don't want to mess with. That was a big L. Even like when I saw it on TV, I'm like, oh no, that looks cool. But then when you find out what it is, that's just completely jacked up. That's classless and has no place being in anything that is entertainment. That is my brainless.
And if they wanted to kind of do something like that where they added a scene from something, you guys were doing WrestleMania Goes Hollywood, Prison Shawshank would have made a hell of a lot more sense. And I had a feeling you were going to go with the Auschwitz, and I wanted to go with it too, except for the fact that I didn't even realize it was Auschwitz. So I kind of said, well, if I give WWE the brainless for the Auschwitz, I have to give myself the brainless. And I'm not giving myself the brainless, damn it. Again. Because Ric Flair gets my brainless this week. I don't know what part of this week I want to mention with Ric Flair, but it's just to a point now where I just every time he opens his mouth, I can't.
Adventure.
So on top of the fact that he said that Charlotte and Rhea should have been the main event of night one, storyline-wise, I'm sorry. Sami Zayn was more over than either one of them, no disrespect to Charlotte or Rhea Ripley. That was Sami's moment, and he deserved it. He's been busting his ass. He has been the highlight and the MVP of the Bloodline story since he got put in it last summer. And the fact is, you're like, well, they don't listen to tradition, and tradition is that the Royal Rumble winner wrestles in the main event of WrestleMania. What? Sheamus won the 1992 Royal Rumble. Or not the 1990. Oh, my God. Sorry. Sheamus won the
1992 Royal Rumble.
All right.
2010?
2012. Sheamus won the 2012. That's why I had the 2 in my head. I was just off by 20 years. Sheamus won the Royal Rumble in 2012. He led off WrestleMania for the World Heavyweight Championship against Daniel Bryan. Likewise, Seth Rollins, I believe it was in 2019, won the Royal Rumble. He started off WrestleMania 35 against Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship.
Alberto Del Rio in 2011 won the Royal Rumble, had the curtain jerker match against Edge for the World Heavyweight Championship.
I'm just saying, Rick, that doesn't seem like, tradition. But on top of that, on top of saying all this stuff, you also said Vince being back in charge is a good thing for WWE. But that's not even the icing on the cake, Jay. He solidified getting the brainless on Friday during the Hall of Fame induction speech as he was inducting the great Muda into the Hall of Fame. And instead of talking about Muda and making this all about Muda, in prototypical Ric Flair fashion, he pulled a Michael Jordan and was just smug. Well, this should have been Sting, but, Sting can't be here. Muda was the greatest Japanese wrestler of all time. And this is from somebody who fought Giant Baba. I fought Antonio Inoki. And by the way, here's Muda.
Yeah.
Ric Flair is the only person on planet Earth that I can think of who can make somebody else's Hall of Fame induction about himself. Every time that man opens his mouth, I just want to deliver one of these into his suckhole. I am sick and tired of it. I've been so anti-Flair since the Dark Side of the Ring episode that made him that shed the light that he was the big piece of shit that he really is. So for me, Ric Flair, in a week where Cena shit his shorts, Vince McMahon absolutely obliterated Monday Night Raw, and all the other crap we got, Ric Flair, congratulations, you got my brainless this week. So, if you like what you've seen, whether you are a first-time watcher or a continuous fan, make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube at the letter T, the letter H, the letter E, the letter F, the letter N, M-A-R-K-S, the F and Marks. If you like, follow, and subscribe to us, we will do the same back. That has always been our
mantra. And make sure you set up notifications so that when we go live, you will be notified that we are live on the Facebook page. We also have a page on Spotify. Make sure you subscribe to that so that way you can take us on the road with you. And we have slowly but surely gathering a following, a bigger following on our YouTube page. And make sure you subscribe to that. We do things that are just a little bit different on that page than we do on the Facebook page. and it'd be cool to have more people join along with us.
Yeah.
Have some monsoon of gorillas.
For the record, when I was going through everything for the F and Marks pages, I almost said Periscope.
Yeah.
We haven't been on Periscope in like 3 years, but I was like, no, it's Instagram, stupid.
Hey,
you almost gave yourself.
Elon Musk might be bringing that back.
I'll tell you right now, I would be thrilled if he brought Periscope back. It was such good shit, pal. But I think that's everything.
Yeah, I think we hit everything that episode 307 probably needs to be known for.
Wait. What are you guys talking about? Is this who I think it is? Is this FN Marks Hall of Famer Curtis Axel? Yes. Whoops. I am Curtis Axel. I am part of the inaugural class of the Hall of Fame. And unlike Muda, I did not have Ric Flair induct me into the Hall of Fame. Do you know why I'm in the Hall of Fame? Why is that, Curtis Axel? Because today, April 7th of 2023, at an astonishing 2,994 days. Holy shit, he's going to be over 3,000 days next week. FN Marks Hall of Famer Curtis Axel is still alive in the 2015 Royal Rumble. That's it for episode 307 of everyone's favorite wrestling podcast, the F and Marks.
Yeah, I'm Jay, and he is
Brainless.
Yeah.
Make sure you mark out
with your guac out. See you, everybody. Enjoy SmackDown. We will see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See
Later,
you.
Jay.
Fun.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.